We've had a really awesome couple months with Performax. They've launched obviously new pre-workouts, new pump products, even a couple fat burners. But today we're going to be talking about a very anticipated launch, SLINMAX. Now, Performax is known for their hardcore yet compliant formulas. And that's one of the things we're excited about, because with GDAs, there's obviously some more tame ones and there's some more exciting ones. So whether you're using this for dieting or for bulking, SLINMAX is going to be an aggressive GDA that I'm going to tell you off the bat, I only recommend you start with 2 caps because it is strong. So let's talk about the ingredients in it, what they're going to do for you, and what to expect from the product so you can get a better idea of what SLINMAX can do for you. So SLINMAX is 7 ingredients, and it takes a both traditional but also pushing the limits look at GDAs. There's a lot of ingredients that we've used and seen for a long time, but there's also some ingredients that push it and show us they were willing to push the price a little bit, which we're excited about. So let's start from the top and talk about the ingredients. Right off the top, Gymnema sylvestre, it's standardized to 25% gymnemic acids. It's going to be the first ingredient. They've got a full gram of here. It's a great dosage and great standardization. Now, this ingredient is kind of fun because if you actually eat it, it can bind to the taste buds that are used for sweet carbohydrates and give you a lowered appetite and craving for carbs. But since we're using a capsule, we're not really talking about that. The main benefits you're going to see from this ingredient are going to be better secretion of insulin, the ability to regenerate pancreatic islet cells, and improved glucose utilization, as well as lower glucose uptake in the intestines. Now, there's a lot of different benefits that come from those for athletes, but with the big things that we're looking at here are going to be finding yourself craving less sweets, which is going to be important for dieters and more important for bulkers as well. I would say that bulkers are going to see that benefit in that they're going to be able to focus better on the meat and potatoes. Kind of a funny pun, but really those potatoes and rice is the micronutrient and dense carbohydrate sources. And obviously combat insulin resistance. And this is going to be a big topic we're going to talk about frequently here. Whether you're dieting and trying to lower blood sugar because you're trying to lose fat, or you're bulking and you're trying to make sure that you can push through that barrier. I know for myself, when I get to like 275, my insulin resistance becomes a factor and it's harder for me to gain weight. Either way, these ingredients are going to help you with that. So let's get into the second one here, and probably the most classic, biggest ingredient in GDAs, berberine hydrochloride. Now we've got 500 milligrams here, and this is an ingredient that can go as high as 1500 milligrams. And normally on the hardcore products, we're going to see that huge dosage, which is triple of what we're seeing here. But I'm actually going to advocate for this lower dosage in this environment because of one key reason that we see a lot with berberine hydrochloride. Not so much the other versions of berberine, but specifically with berberine hydrochloride, we see with large doses, especially when you're taking it frequently, an acidic feeling in the stomach, gastric distress, stomach discomfort. It comes from that frequent usage of berberine, and it's one of the reasons that people have searched for other versions of berberine. But in this case, they went with a lower dosage, so you still get the really awesome effects of berberine. And believe me, berberine, I'm not going to go all that deep in this video because we've got tons of content on it. If you want to learn more about berberine, we have a podcast with Sean Wells, who is like the guy to talk about berberine with. We've got tons of deep dives into all the different versions of berberine available, the studies, the data that show berberine versus even things like metformin and how effective it is. So like I've said, there's a lot of different mechanisms and interesting parts of berberine. I'm not going to dive all the way in on those because it would take a 20-minute long section just for that. But really what you're expected to know here is that berberine is going to be really effective at controlling insulin levels and glucose disposal. It activates AMPK, which is important because that improves insulin sensitivity and blood glucose or specifically glucose transport in the body. AMPK that I talked about is going to be the enzyme that's useful for the we need energy right now type idea. It ignites the breakdown of fat and it boosts a lot of metabolic activities. And additionally, it's going to inhibit P1 beta, which is going to mimic the activity of insulin. So it's really dropping that blood sugar. It's one of the many reasons that this is a very popular ingredient for GDAs. So you're going to see improvements in body composition if you're dieting or even if you're growing. I've used this on a bulk at some high dosages and had some really interesting effects where like I literally couldn't even put on weight even though I was getting bigger. And you're going to see all the way from that to better handling of insulin resistance and success in dealing with metabolic syndrome. If you have been at a plateau, either gaining weight or losing weight for a while, this is the kind of ingredient that's going to help you break through that without the usage of stimulants, which I think is really important. Now the previous version had 200 milligrams, so we're still seeing an increase of it here, but not so much, like I said, that it's going to cause stomach discomfort. Super excited about this change. Love the ingredient and really like what they're doing with it here. Instead of just mega dosing it like so many brands will lazily do, they went with a more strategic push here so they could put that money to some other things, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But before that, we're going to talk about Banaba extract. Banaba extract is an ingredient that is commonly seen in GDAs alongside berberine. This one is standardized for 2% chloroacetic acids. Now, Banaba with standardization for chloroacetic acids has not only been shown to improve glucose transportation in the body, but also impact insulin sensitivity. Again, we're looking at transporting glucose from the blood to the muscle, as well as impacting insulin sensitivity, so that not only are you lowering blood sugar in the body, but you're using those carbohydrates for better usage. This is not just glucose disposal. It's not just getting rid of it from the blood sugar. It's also nutrient partitioning, making sure that you use those nutrients well. In general, the data kind of suggests around a 10% reduction in both fasting and postprandial blood glucose. That means in the morning when you wake up and you're fasted, you're going to have a 10% lower blood sugar, as well as postprandial after a meal, your blood sugar is going to return to a lower level, 10% lower, even though you were just eating carbohydrates. This is an awesome claim, huge deal. I think it's a big deal. If you're tracking your blood sugar fasted and post meal, you'll know how big of a deal that is. And if you're not, well, I would recommend that you at least try it for a little bit if you're going to be a serious athlete. It's something that you should have control over and have a general idea of what your body does, so that as your body changes, you can track that and get an idea of how your body's faring with calories, carbohydrates, and weight. Last bit of information to talk about here is if you look at the animal data, you're going to notice that Banaba, especially with that chloroacetic acid standardization, improves GLUT4 receptor signaling in muscle tissue. So it's going to make sure that that glucose is going to muscle tissue. And this is another concept that we're going to talk about a little bit, that as athletes, we want to make sure that it's not just pulling blood sugar from the bloodstream. So it's not just going to fat and liver. We want it to be going to muscles so that you can fill out those glycogen stores and perform better. So after that, we're going to look at isolin, which is a trademarked version of sodium R-ALA. Now, ALA is a fatty acid. It exists in the mitochondria of each cell. It's a really big deal in the body for energy production. It's an antioxidant that's going to improve the reduction of oxidative stress, and which is a really common thing in supplements. We talk about that a lot. It's one of the reasons that a lot of supplements have their benefits is reducing oxidative stress. But that's not really what we're looking for in this specific video. There's a lot of other reasons that we can appreciate that. But when we're talking about glucose disposal, we're going to talk about sodium R-ALA being an ingredient that can reduce blood sugar and improve glycogen storage because of its actions with GLUT4. Now, ALA itself is an ingredient that does a lot of this stuff, but sodium R-ALA is going to be an enhanced version of it, which is much more bioavailable and way more active. It's an active isomer. If you've heard us talk about choline bitartrate before, we talk about isomers as gloves and hands, right? So it's a very common topic in that some ingredients are going to be like a left-handed glove, but the receptor is going to be a right hand. Yes, you can put a left-handed glove over a right hand. It technically will fit because it has one thumb and 4 fingers, but it's not going to be very comfortable. It's not going to be very functional. In these cases, we're talking about the right-handed glove for the right hand, and that's why it works so much better. Now, alpha-lipoic acid, again, stimulates AMPK, metabolic tissue. There's a lot of those same benefits of berberine. And if you take a step back and you look at what ALA has done in studies for patients that have neuropathy from chronically high blood sugar, you notice that it can reduce HbA1c levels as well as blood sugar, and it's been really helpful at mitigating those conditions that come alongside with high blood sugar. One thing I really do want to know is what I mentioned about sodium R-ALA being a better version of just ALA. It's much more expensive as well. So if you're concerned, so if you see other people using ALA, make sure that you notice sodium R-ALA is going to be a much more efficient form, but also a more expensive form. So for the people who are going to complain about the lower dosage of berberine that I mentioned before at 500 milligrams, which isn't really even all that low. It's lower. I mean, it's a great dosage. I just kind of mentioned that it's not that mega dosing strategy that so many brands have just lazily come to. Performax, in my opinion, decided to put that extra money, instead of just using a mega dose, into using the really proper versions of a bunch of these. Not only is this the sodium R-ALA version, it's also isolin, which is a trademark version, and you spend a little bit extra for that license to use that name. Anecdotally, with our experiences with both finger pricks and using CGMs, sodium R-ALA seems to keep blood sugar about 5 to 10 points lower on average throughout the day. It is quite serious, and it works acutely, which is kind of interesting because some stuff is going to help over the trend of 30-90 days, keep stuff lower. This seems to work pretty quickly. From there, we talk about cinnamon bark extract, and cinnamon is obviously something we love to put on. I put it on my toast, sometimes my eggs, but it's a really common ingredient in these GDAs, but also very powerful, and for good reason. It contains various different components like cinnamonic acid, coumarin, eugenol, and catechins. It's seen as antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic, but most importantly here is going to be the methyl hydroxyl chalcone, which is actually an insulin mimicker. This is going to help pull blood sugar from the bloodstream and stick it in glycogen. So we're going to see a lot of stuff for this. Reducing blood glucose levels is obvious, so that's what it does. But with that effect, we'll see better triglyceride panels, better HbA1c levels, and it's going to start working quick because it literally does it when you take it. Pulls that blood pulls the blood sugar right out of the blood, sticks it in the muscle. And so for good reason, we've seen the trend of berberine and cinnamon being put together in a lot of products, so we're excited to see it here as well. Now here with the last two, we're going to talk about BioPerine. BioPerine is an ingredient absorption ingredient. This is the kind of ingredient that is added to help improve the ingredient absorption of others. It's not actually specifically studied in any of these, so that's one thing I would note, is that if that's specifically what you were going for, I can't claim any ingredients in here are going to be specifically boosted, but BioPerine is a cost-effective ingredient. It works by slowing intestinal emptying rate, inhibiting other compounds that could prematurely degrade ingredients in the supplement before they're actually absorbed. So it is possible it could improve the absorption of some ingredients here, but we don't have any specific ones that are studied, so I'm just careful and want to make sure that I mention that. Now lastly, with chromium picolinate, you got a 500 microgram dosage here. Chromium has been studied as low as 200, is kind of really the standard dose for a lot of lower level claims, all the way up to 1,000 micrograms where you start getting into appetite suppression and some bigger claims. But here we've got 500 micrograms, which is kind of like a fun middle ground between the lowest dosage and the highest dosage. It's kind of similar like beta alanine, citrulline. There's a variety of different dosages that you can use for different claims. The important thing here is that chromium deficiency is a really big deal. Chromium deficiency leads to a lot of different health conditions, and it is quite often common in America. But a lot of these conditions are due to insulin signaling problems because of that chromium deficiency. And so with this big daily dosage, you're going to help mitigate a lot of those problems. And with a lot of supplements, we talk about this. It's not so much just the supplementation of extra ingredients that helps improve things, but it's also the mitigation of the deficiency of that ingredient in your body that really is making a difference. And so with that in mind, the research has really shown several benefits in regards to chromium picolinate usage, better mood, craving suppression, but a lot of this is going to be done on insulin resistant users. So if you are not insulin resistant, just keep that in mind. The bigger changes are mostly for people who are already insulin resistant or diabetic. You will have an effect no matter what, because most of us are chromium deficient. Just notice that most of the studies were done on patients in that case. In terms of dosing, I want to make sure that everyone knows off the bat, you gotta be using two capsules. This is really strong. It dropped our blood sugar like quite aggressively. So for bulking, I'd recommend consuming 2 caps twice a day. I put them with big meals, like a big breakfast, you break it fast, and then pre-workout would be another really great one. And make sure you're getting like over 75 grams of carbs for this. For dieting, I would kind of actually do this a little bit differently. I'd use 1 capsule frequently, like 2 to 4 times a day with meals. obviously you're not gonna have as much carbohydrates, for most people won't in their dieting phases, so this is gonna help reduce bloating, digestion, and in that dieting phase you want to be a little bit tighter. It's gonna do a lot of other things in there. Overall, this product really sinks into Performax's overall stack really well. If you use this pre-workout, especially with their pre and their pump product, you're gonna have an insane pump. This is gonna drive carbs right into the glycogen, be really efficient, and it definitely doesn't cut any corners in terms of the hardcore nature, but again, it's still compliant and helpful. So there's a lot of really nice things about this product. I think that for most people, I would recommend you just grab it and try it out for yourself. If you're new to the GDA community, this would be a good one to start off, as long as you start low. If you're a veteran to it, I think you'll still appreciate a lot of the stuff about it. It's still a very aggressive GDA. As always, guys, I do have to say I got this product for free, and we do have a business relationship with Performax. So that doesn't change the fact that we've had an awesome couple months announcing all of these reformulations and rebrands. It's been an awesome experience, and I think there is still some more coming. I'm just not aware or allowed to share what I do know yet. So as always, guys, I want to make sure I say thanks so much for watching this far in the video, and have a great day.
Welcome to PricePlow.